Marlene, can you hear us? Well, Marlene is a very stalwart Fire Safe Council supporter, and we've worked up in her neighborhood a couple years ago. So anyway, there she is.
I'm here.
Yeah.
You doing, Marlene?
I'm doing okay.
For a youngster, Marlene is a go-getter. In fact, I
Yeah.
just went by your house yesterday afternoon, just kind of seeing how that regrowth is occurring since we were up there with our project. And man, you've cleared off a lot more.
Oh
Man, your
yeah.
property looks dynamite.
I keep clearing.
It looks wonderful. What a
I
great
have,
example to your neighborhood.
well, I try to keep it clear and I want to clear out more. It's just, trying to coordinate everything and just trying to keep up with it all. It's not easy.
Yeah.
True.
Well, it's an excellent
Yeah.
investment, not only for
Well,
fire safety, but now you can see those mountain lions better, huh?
Well, see, that doesn't upset me.
Yeah.
So I love the wildlife. I don't care what it is. That's why I'm here. So
Yeah.
I figure we all have a place.
That's
So,
true.
anyway,
So Dale, would you like to start on the agenda and explain that some of these folks will not be participating unless you have an update
Yeah.
for?
Martin's not here. I invited the editor and owner of Mount Shasta News to join our meeting, but he probably had a conflict. In the meanwhile, the resident management system on Firewise, I'm going to let you address that, Kristen. Kristen is our coordinator of the Firewise communities. And if you haven't gone to that website, you guys need to check it out. There's some great stuff there on the CAL FIRE Firewise portion.
That's something different, but the resident management system is for Firewise communities. And
It is, and that's what I'm talking about.
we'll let Kristen, go ahead, Kristen, explain what it is.
So you're talking about Peter Feller's.
I think that's what he meant. Yes, Peter Feller's thing.
Right. So we, with the last chunk of money we had from grant funds through the California Fire Safe Council, we bought a new resident data management system platform database that a man named Peter Feller created for his own purposes because he discovered starting a Fire Safe Council and Firewise community. He needed something like this, so was born out of Agora Hills, and I'll pop their web address. You can just Google Agora Hills Fire Safe Council, and you can see how it flows off of theirs. And it's under Firewise and then Firewise activities, and it's essentially what it is it just streamlines the process of getting all the folks in Firewise communities to report what they're doing, and makes it a lot easier for the leaders of Firewise communities to manage and report and renew their Firewise designation each year. So we thought this would make everyone's lives a lot easier and make starting Firewise communities more feasible and make them more sustainable, so they don't fizzle out, and avoid burnout for the leaders, because that we've been to the Shasta County Firewise leaders meeting, I guess a month and a half ago now. And that was a big group, and they've been doing Firewise for a lot of years. And that's kind of the number one thing that the Firewise leaders talked about is their challenges and frustrations, was trying to get this data from folks in order to report and renew the designation each year. So that is where we were coming from. And it seems like a great system. We're just getting it up and running. It's not live yet, but soon to be.
So basically, all of the reporting that a Firewise community has to do, and you can manually collect pieces of paper, or you can send your residents to this website and they can just check bubble boxes, and all your reporting is contained right there. It makes it concise and easy, and we'll send you the link when you're ready to do that for your Firewise, your reporting stuff. and, projects or whatever else you need to report for Firewise. It's all right there, easy. So,
I hope it worked out good for him. He was right on the edge of that fire siege in January, wasn't he?
yes, he was, and he didn't have to evacuate, but he came close. Anyway, y'all, anybody have questions concerning the resident management system tool? Oh,
Um,
all right. Deb?
actually, I did.
Oh.
It's like, I like the idea of having the Firewise community. I wouldn't even know where to get started up here. It's been a hard year. I would love to get one in this area, but I don't even know my neighbors anymore. I mean, how,
Well, you've got a good neighbor down the hill. That's Matt Mello, our former city, actually,
yeah,
district also fire chief. Why don't you start with him? And I bet you he can shake it up.
where is he? Is,
Uh,
is he on Old McLeod?
yeah, I'll send you his contact information after this meeting.
Okay.
Not only that, Marlene, but from the project we finished off, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I still have all the landowners, and a map with all the landowners' names on it. So I have all that contact info, but some I'm sure have sold or moved, but I can send you that list and that map, and that ought to help you out.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that could really help you guys out because I know there's a number of people that have been threatened or already canceled up in your neck of the woods. And you're not alone. It's happening all over the county. I would estimate between 5 and 8% of people have been or are being canceled as we speak. It's getting very serious.
All right. Any more questions about the resident management system?
So that brings us to maintaining our fuel breaks. As you guys know, at the end of 2017, we had a fuel break combined with the Forest Service and the good help of CAL FIRE that was all the way around Mount Shasta City area. And unfortunately, in spite of lots of encouragement, too many people, especially when those field breaks are right in their own backyards or front yards, are not maintaining those field breaks. And we did the heavy lifting. And as we promised them, we're going to do this heavy lifting. We're going to cut out this 10, 12-foot tall decadent manzanita, but it's going to grow back. And it's easy for you to maintain it with a weed eater. Don't let it go because by the second year, it's going to be tougher. By the third year, you're going to be out there with a chainsaw, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, we've got all kinds of regeneration. The best that I can say was the mastication efforts that we did because mastication typically, well, it's our contract specification for leaving at least, and no more actually, than 4 inches depth of masticated wood chips onto the ground. And that serves as a very good deterrent and adds an extra 5 years or more to the regeneration of that manzanita, which is a very prolific plant with a tremendous root system that is fire resistant from coming back and growing again. And if you go down at Friar's Way, you'll see what we did way back in 2010, 15 years ago. That brush is already 6, 7 feet tall and thick, thick. And the problem too, when we do fuel reduction in the dormant season, which we do because we don't want to get out there, if we can help it, masticating, let alone running hand tools with the crew and igniting a fire during the heat of the summer. Well, the meristems on plants are very active. They kick out all kinds of rapid growth when those plants are cut during the dormant or semi-dormant period. If we did it during the middle of summer, it would be great. The regeneration would be 1/3 of what we experience. But that has rarely been our choice, except for Tenant, where we also put a field break all the way around
Because
it.
of fire season.
We pushed it because we had good flat ground. We had a very capable fire suppression force in town, plus Forest Service that was patrolling on a daily basis for us, and CAL FIRE fairly often too. We pushed it all the way to August, and it really showed. We got very little regeneration from that stuff that we cut from about June to August, but we finally had to cut it off. And it proved itself. As many of you know, that field break around Tennant saved the whole town with one exception. And that one exception, unfortunately, was the old, historic, beautiful wooden structure of the Tennant High School and Grammar School burned to the ground. And the big reason it really burned to the ground is that property owner, an absentee owner, in spite of my many conversations with them, would not allow us to hardly do any field reduction on his property. So that's what happens. But meanwhile, whenever we can, we want to push the envelope as safely as we possibly can and try and cut into that point of maybe June or through June if we can. So maintaining your field breaks, you might consider the same. If you guys can deploy hose, you have a good confidence in your field reduction efforts, you may be better off doing it with hand tools during the summer months than during the dormant period. But you've got to be extremely cautious. By the time we get into July, we're on the edge, the ragged edge of safe. The field breaks that may not be on your property, maybe those are your neighbors, please encourage your neighbors, talk it up with your neighbors, remind them about the lava fire in 2022 and how it almost burned into Mount Shasta City. Had it not been for the Beckworth hotshots and the Klamath hotshots that were on this side of Diller Canyon, chasing for 2 solid days and nights, spot fire with no dozer support, with no quads, with no nothing except hand tools, and they kept that fire at bay. That was an absolute miracle. Thank you, Forest Service, for that. But it can happen at any time. And with this rain that's going right into April, well, April showers makes more than spring flowers. It also makes a lot of tall, flashy, fuel-like grass. And that's the kind of stuff that we may be seeing and experiencing too soon as early startups in the lower elevations from all the grass growth. So if you can maintain your fuel breaks around your neighborhoods, let alone on your own property, please encourage everyone, the old 10-foot rule. If you're within 10 foot of somebody, tell them fire season's coming. It's going to be here soon. Please join us, join our neighborhood, join our efforts, make it count.
You have Pacific Power fuel breaks. Why do you have a point to make there?
We're hopeful that Jill Drinkwater will complete her presentation that she made to us last fall. We asked what the cost of overhead power line maintenance is. What is the cost per mile? Also, what is the cost per mile for this new construction, replacing wood poles with steel poles or metal poles? And then what is the cost to underground? And you guys have probably heard about it. Elon Musk has got technologically the most fantastic tunneling system known to man at this point. And I think it would be wonderful, wonderful to get as much of our new construction and replacement construction put underground. As you guys well know, Pacific Power and Light, our provider, started 11,000 fires in the last decade in Oregon and California. They are paying buku bucks, and they're going to pass it on to us. Buku bucks for all the lawsuits that have settled, including out in Happy Camp. And that's a sad commentary because that was totally avoidable if they had maintained that. Meanwhile, PG&E, as you've probably read, has already put in 10,000 plus miles of underground power lines. So it's a doable deal, especially with the legislation that took place after we taxpayers bailed out PG&E in their third bankruptcy. And now all the utilities are getting state monies, taxpayers' money to maintain their fuel breaks, their power line clearance, their pole clearance, etc. Thank you very much. So I'd like to see what we can do here in Siskiyou County to get undergrounding going on. We'll hopefully hear
Here's Heidi
soon.
George. Admitting Heidi George. I'll have her introduce herself. Hi, Heidi. Can you hear us?
Hi, yeah, just a second.
We're getting some echo back here.
Oh, she's trying to do her phone at the same time. While we're waiting for Heidi to connect, does anybody have any questions concerning maintaining fuel breaks? Any ideas, comments?
I had a question.
Sure.
Is one of the reasons that they're not wanting to do underground power lines is because they're harder to maintain because you have to dig them up and work on them?
I don't know that answer. I would think it would be less maintenance, but that's why we wanted Jill to come and maybe she could answer those questions.
Yeah.
They're a lot more expensive to put in initially. That's the main hangup is I don't know how much more expensive. I just know a lot more expensive initially to install. But the other, the Upton Highlands neighborhood, it's all underground in that neighborhood, which is nice.
Nice,
Since it's
very
in a
nice. Yes.
highly flammable brush field.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, good. I was following on my iPhone because I couldn't connect with my computer, but I got my computer to run, so I'm here.
We can't see you. You
Yeah,
don't-
I don't know why it just stopped showing my my picture.
Oh, okay.
Last night's meeting, I could not figure it out.
Oh, okay. So Heidi, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Heidi George, and I'm starting up the Gateway Firewise community, and it's north of Mount Shasta area, from like where Giselle lives on Shasta Avenue, all the way north to the Shasta Trail, and then east and west of Everett Memorial Highway. It goes east to the Foothills to the Forest Service property, and then it goes west to just the other side of Crystal Geysers and Siskiyou County Sheriff's. So, and I did put a couple maps in yesterday's chat, and I can add those today too if that's helpful.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hello, Heidi. I'm Dale Nova. I'm the co-facilitator for the Mount Shasta Area Fire Safe Council.
Okay. Steve,
I do.
I understand you're a retired Forest Service employee.
I am.
And where from?
Here.
Oh, the Mount Shasta?
I've met you.
Yes. I knew your name
yeah.
sounded very familiar.
Yeah, I
But-
actually retired from the Angeles National Forest. I was the forest hydrologist.
good for you.
Yeah, so I know right where Altadena is. I know, just that whole just tragic travesty. And then also I was on the Los Padres for a couple years. I left here in 2018 after being here for about 14 years. So I know the area pretty well.
Steve,
And where were you on the LP?
I was actually in Goleta
Oh,
I was the forest hydrologist there.
Dale, Steve has his hand up.
hello, Steve.
Okay, so one of the things when we're talking about maintaining fuel breaks, some of these fuel breaks, I know that when I was working for the Forest Service on the Lassen, we had a project around Spalding, and we had pre-built in a return interval, depending on where it was, somewhere between 5 and 10 years. So I guess this kind of goes out to Christine. I know that there's never a shortage of work, but is there any way from a fuel standpoint that maybe you could look into your crystal ball and say, okay, we'd like to do a return interval on some of these fuel breaks every 5 to 10 years? Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Is it
Yeah,
something that
so
could work for you guys too?
He's talking to Christine.
yeah, so as far as I know, that is currently in place. All of our NEPAs allow for re-entry, and we do shoot for that window. Obviously, as you know, a lot of it can be condition permitting. But like I said, as far as I know, that is typically the intent. The area around Mount Shasta, so the McBride, the I zone, those are all first entries. And as far as I know, they are on a regular interval.
Any other questions for either Christine, Steve, or Dale, or Heidi, or anybody? All right, Dale, the next item on the list.
Well, getting back to undergrounding.
Marlene has just put her hand up if
Oh.
it's relevant to it.
Yes,
Sure.
Marlene.
This 5-foot clearance of any, that they're hoping that we all have from the house, or I guess the deck, if you have a deck, even if it's plastic materials, they want you to have nothing growing 5 feet away or something.
Yeah, the
this is
zero zone.
It's
Yeah, the
zero
zero
zone, yeah.
zone.
Yeah,
Now-
and that's coming into law, and they are going to enforce it coming up real soon.
Okay, well, does that also include things like bulbs, or like irises, which is basically, just a rhizome that just is kind of filled with water and.
Yeah, the way I understand it, that is so, but Jason, do you have any insight to that?
You are correct in that way that those type of things technically in that zone are being asked not to be in it. But ultimately that goes back on the homeowner, and as of right now, it's not currently an enforcement, but a foreseeable in the future for sure. That's where it's going on that zone 0 to 5 feet away from your home.
Okay, because we planted irises because it's one thing that the deer don't eat. I guess we'll have to move, but we also have a dogwood tree that's like 3 feet away that we planted, I don't know, 20 years ago. What do you do? Chop it down?
How many feet away is the dogwood?
Oh, probably like 3 feet.
Yeah. Well, the problem with any tree, even a slow growing species like a dogwood, those roots will eventually be pulling or pushing right up against your foundation. Hopefully it's still young enough in the fall, you could transplant that and get it out of that zero zone.
Yeah,
I can look at it next time I'm up your way.
okay,
I'll keep that in mind. I'll give you a call.
okay, thanks.
Sure.
And irises are bulbs, and you can dig them up and put them somewhere
Oh,
else.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know irises you can throw in a pile and they'll grow. It's just,
Yeah.
that's the easy one.
yeah.
Thank
But I
you.
hear what you're saying because I've got English laurel, which is fire resistant, and it's on a lot of lists of fire resistant species. And they're on my west property line that give great shade protection to our bedrooms on the west side of our home. I got it all trimmed away pretty well, but some of those root systems are within that 5-foot zone. So I'm continuing to trim those and favor them distancing 5 feet or more. But if push comes to shove, I just might have to take them out. I hope not.
Well, yeah,
That brings up an interesting point. If I can ask, in the 4291, there's, well, actually, it'd probably be the FC 100 inspection. There's a point where it says all dead and dying limbs need to be removed from plants, including trees, that not only overhang your house, but are within that critical 0 zone and zone 1. So when they say dying limbs or dead limbs, how small of a diameter? Because for many, many years, our tree services used to safety trim trees, and if the customer wanted to pay for it, we would go down to what we called class 2, 1-inch diameter, dead, dying, and defective limbs. That's very expensive compared to what ISA calls class 3 limbs, those 2 inches in diameter and larger. In fact, the price differential is 100%. It's double the cost to remove 1-inch limbs, because you literally have to get out there on a limb, way out. And it's much more time consuming and obviously more expensive. What does CAL FIRE consider for the diameter of a dead limb that needs to be come out?
Are you asking Jason?
Yeah, I'm asking Jason.
I can get back to you on that. I know in a lot of the information that I've seen and known from our inspectors, I don't know if there's anything specific to the actual diameter when it in that where it does say that. So that's a good question though, and I will definitely I can write it down and ask up through our channels on the inspection and the enforcement side of it, of what is considered under that.
Yeah, it'd be good to hopefully find consensus. I've asked a number of CAL FIRE inspectors, including Monty Messenger back in the day, and I remember what he told me. He says, that's anything, any diameter. And I had to tease with him. I said, well, Monty, does that mean all your trees have all the dead limbs taken out of them? And he laughed because he knew I knew. But quite honestly, I mean, you and I have been in a lot of fire. And when it comes to limbs burning, if it's going to burn a 1-inch limb, it's going to burn a 2-inch limb. It's going to probably burn that tree down. So I was just thinking, what is reasonable? And in my estimation, 2 inches is reasonable for the cost of tree service work and also for the health of the tree and the health of somebody's pocketbook.
All righty. Are you moving on then to number 4, maintaining defensible space, increase home hardening?
Yeah. So that home hardening is ongoing, isn't it? You probably heard a lot about some of these gutters that are supposed to capture all the debris and you never have to clean your gutters again and yaka, yaka, yaka. But so far, even with the leaf filter, I haven't seen that they're highly effective. Smaller debris is going to get through those little holes and they're not all going to go to gravity and flow down and out your bottom spouts. But still, home hardening is so important. There's so many simple things that we often overlook, like vent covers, as one example. The biggest one, and everybody, I'll betcha, sooner or later, down in the South Zone in LA County after January and after December 2024 will speak to this, is the flying firebrands that whirled right through their windows. And I've been down there 3 times in that very area that burned there in the Palisades. Second time I went down there, I met a homeowner who we had spoken to when we were doing mop up back in 1969, and he had rebuilt. He had rebuilt with a cinder block house and put tile roof on, and that house for the second time in 1973 burned to the ground because of those fire whirls that went right through those great big beautiful windows. And Australia's got it, they've got it right. In many municipalities and sections of Australia, they require fire shutters. So that's something to think about. I made some very inexpensive ones to home harden when it's almost too late and the fire's moving through. And I made them out of 1/4-inch plywood because it's light, it's quick, it's cheap, it's not fire resistant. But when you have a fire whirl hit that plywood, it's not going to go through it. It's going to drop to the ground. It might be burning on the ground, but it's not going to burn the bottom of the plywood unless your glass goes right to the ground. I got some cleats from the hardware store, and for less than $500, I got this 3/8 inch exterior grade plywood and cleats and baling wire to cover all of my windows. And I had it tested during the lava fire, but I never had to use it, thankfully. Something to think about. And I think, that's something that Jason, you might want to take back in one of your workshops to your CAL FIRE folks, is that consideration as especially in very high fire severity areas like Mount Shasta and Southern California, where we can get some driving winds.
Well, I don't think plywood would work nowadays. You'd have to get some hardy board or something because plywood is wood and it's flammable.
Right.
And so that it's probably not a good
Well,
material.
I don't think that it would work to meet a statute. It wouldn't fly by in that regard. But for somebody that wanted to do it yourself, keep the costs low, make it work cheap, and be able to handle something that's much, much lighter than a hardy board. I mean, you compare, I don't even know if they make 3/8 inch hardy board, but the weight's probably 6 times heavier. And trying to lift up a full sheet of hardy board, I think would be quite a hoist.
So any comments or questions on that?
Steve
already-
got something in the chat
Oh.
here. Vulcan vents are part of the WUIBS standards, and there's money that can go with them. Huh, I haven't heard that. What is
No.
WUIBS? That's not
Okay.
IBHS.
So if you've built a home in the past roughly 10 years, the WUIBS is Wildland Urban Interface Building Standards. So there are very clear definitions. If you're going to build a home, you must have double pane tempered glass. They recommend triple pane, which is what we
Yeah.
put in.
Mhm.
As far as any soffit vents or external vents, there are 2 or 3 of them that meet the criteria. One of them are the Vulcan vent product. And right now, Vulcan vents are advertising that they will do retrofits, and there's actually money that goes with this.
Oh, this is good news.
So that's certainly one to look at. But
Thanks for sharing that, Steve.
yeah, and if you're ever in question, hopefully, and I know this isn't necessarily a forever fact, but hopefully the building inspector for the county is dialed into what the Wildland Urban Interface Building Standards are.
Very
Kristen,
good.
this might be something to include in the CWPP update. It should bring
Yeah,
it up.
that's interesting. Yeah, I'll flag that and look into it. Thank you,
Yeah.
Steve.
Talking about roof vents or the vents on the ground, what are we talking about?
Okay, in this particular case, the Vulcan vent product that we used was for soffit vents.
Oh, soffits,
However, there are various other products that are compatible with roof vents. You can get them for ridgeline type vents, as well as I would think one of the roof vents that also kind of sheds snow. I don't believe there's anything made for like foundation venting. If there is, I'm not aware of it. We didn't have to use that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Incidentally, Jason, Steve's a retired BC himself from Susanville. So watch out for him.
I'm pretty user friendly.
Yeah. All right.
I will say though, honestly,
Yes.
if you have single pane windows
Let those dogs.
and your fire's coming, I actually would second that strategy of the plywood, because that is what saved my husband's family's 5th generation as a cabin, pretty rustic cabin up in the Trinity Alps wilderness with the hay press fire and the river complex with 60-foot flame lengths. I mean, the fire, he was there when the firestorm ripped up that canyon on a red flag day with crazy winds. And yeah, they had all of those plywood window coverings because, you know, there's 12 feet of snow up there at 6,000 feet. Every winter they have to put these on, and quite a few other neighbor cabins, you know, they all have those too. And honestly, that's like what saved a lot of these cabins.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
especially out my husband's family's cabin has single pane windows, you know, so.
And where is that, was that?
That's up at the very end of Coffee Creek Road past, there's Big Flat Campground.
Yeah.
And then there's like a gate across the road at Big Flat Campground that, you know, because they've had this property since before the Trinity Alps Wilderness was designated.
So you guys are the ones behind the gate.
Yeah,
And they couldn't hunt.
yeah, that's them.
But it
Yeah.
worked out. Me and Marcus got a nice big buck up there before that fire.
Yeah, yeah, it's all
I
really
went up there this last
fascinating
deer
now.
season. I never wanted to go back after I heard what happened.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's really,
it
I
was
still can't
heartbreaking.
drive up that road without crying. It's
Oh, man.
so
We had
devastated.
some wonderful, wonderful
Yeah.
times up there.
Yeah, it was really epic. Yeah, we got married up there. It's like the most
Did you
epic.
really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, it was like a death in the family when that place burned. It was really, it's
Well,
still,
thankfully it
still can
wasn't.
barely go up there. It's
It's
bad.
amazing people got out of there with that one way in, one way out.
Well, they didn't get out of there.
Absolutely.
They had to jump in a pond.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody
They
died.
they thought
Nobody
what
got
they
burned.
thought they lost. They were all retired CAL FIRE guys up there volunteering, you know, to help him save all these places up there. And yeah, they thought they lost one of them. They almost didn't make it through this firestorm. It was nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, so yeah, I as an anecdote, if you have single pane windows and the fire's coming, yeah, throw some plywood over.
If I can backtrack to the tunneling, the cost, tentative cost I got from engineering department PG&E for undergrounding, it's 3 to 4 times more expensive than putting overhead and maintaining it during a 10-year period. So there's the trade-offs we have to consider: maintaining overhead lines, tree trimming every 3-5 years, blah, blah, blah. And in the meanwhile, Elon Musk's tunnel program goes right underneath tree roots. So there's virtually no maintenance involved. Once you stick that stuff through the conduits, it's almost untouchable, except by earthquakes.
Yeah. So I think our next one, item 4, we talked about Firewise communities and getting some started. And if I can recap, Marlene wants to get one started, maybe. And so I'm going to send her some information. Heidi George is actively working on hers, and Steve Diaz is actively working on his. What are you going to call yours, Steve? Holiday?
Probably
Firewise?
holiday Firewise community.
Okay.
It's going to encompass the Holiday subdivision as well as the Michelle subdivision over where the fire station is.
Okay.
And we're looking to include roughly 85 homes.
All right. Yeah. And so Steve's got a good start there, as does Heidi and Marlene.
Excellent.
We'll be talking with you. So I or Kristen
Go
will
get them.
be talking with you next steps. So any
Yeah,
questions?
the other thing is that we did start, we've only had one meeting last, I guess it was November, with the leaders, or we were gonna maybe start doing it on a regular basis, but at the first meeting we decided just to do it as needed. And it seems like now that there's folks coming out of the woodwork like Steve and Heidi, it's a good time to do another one. And it's basically just a forum for all the Firewise leaders and potential, people who are trying to start, just to have a hive mind and support you guys, and share ideas and resources, and especially with this Kevin Mancebo on the scene, who's rallying to get Chipper Days going. That is another reason we should coordinate, so we can get all these Firewise in. And so I will say that, in that light of taking that opportunity of doing the Chipper Days, that is something that needs to be done actually before you even submit your application, because you actually have to have all of the requirements met when you submit your application. So doing a Chipper Day would be the kind of shot in the arm, you know, the one-stop shop you need to have that requirement filled. And then, you know, hopefully we'll have that resident management system up and running. And then it's, you know, just really easy to pop in all of the metrics into that and then export that with your application. So yeah, all these little pieces of the puzzle, you know.
And talking about chipper days, and Jason, you can address this too. Kevin Mancebo came to one of our meetings recently, and he said they have 4 or 5 available chippers and they want the work. So as if you have something, you have to cut your residents have to cut the brush and move it to the road, but CAL FIRE will come by with arrangements and chip all of that. And there's your project. You've got one, and you can get started on your application. So, and you don't have to do all 8 homes, just get a good project going, you know, so.
Well, and
So
that's the
Battalion
nice
Chief-
thing is that the cubic yards that you're gonna do on a chipper day, it doesn't matter if only 8 or 10 of those 85 homes are on board. A chipper day is gonna do all of the requirements for all 85 homes in one day. You know, it's very minimal what is required.
One day shopping.
Yeah, so it's, and what we've been told from the you know, Firewise folks at NFPA and CAL FIRE is that they really want you to make your boundaries bigger than smaller. They want you to they don't want you to have to expand and redo your boundaries. They'd rather you start big and include, you know, just a logical connected geographical area.
We
Even
like
if
that.
you're only starting out with 8, the minimum of 8 folks, you know, on board
Right.
with it. The challenge would be, you know, if you can't meet, if you had like 500 homes and you really can't meet the requirements for the, you know, work that needs to be done for 500 homes. But you know, like Dunsmuir is 1,400 homes, and you know they do 2 greenway stays a year, so it's no problem to meet the requirements for even 1,400 homes.
But they envision big and they encompass the whole town, even though they had only a couple dozen, maybe 50 homes.
Right, right.
instead of
So
the
yeah,
1,500.
so you're on the right track with setting that up with the boundary being bigger, even though you obviously aren't going to get all 85 people to join the Firewise communities. So
We have several homes up. I want to comment one thing to Steve. We have a project on from Ream to Cantera. We're doing either side of the road on Old Stage Road and up Azalea. We're working. That could be your project if you wanted to move out there. We're working vigorously. Juan will be back. And if you wanted to expand that far out, you would have a project already working. So I'll go ahead. You have your hand up. You have a question, Steve?
Okay, so I just wanted to remind everybody that one of the other things that Kevin shared was they do have a hook truck available, but it's always preferable to put the chips on the ground. So if you have a spot, please be mindful of where you would like those chips to end up or not.
Yeah.
Good point.
So the
So-
go-to guy is our battalion chief from CAL FIRE, Jason Collins. Call us if you don't have his contact information, but before you get far down the road, when you start talking it up, you want to include Jason.
Well, he can, Jason, if you want, and if you have the ability, you can put your contact info in the chat. Heidi, your hand is up.
Yeah, so Jason, I left you a message and we can chat later, but I have been talking with my neighbors and I have been getting some questions about the size of the material that the chippers can chip. So like manzanita branches, you know, what the diameter would be. And there's going to be some folks in the gateway that are ready to rock and roll with chipping. Everybody seems to be already have planned to do quite a bit of work. And there's one area in particular that I'm concerned about, ingress egress, and that's the Vista area that goes from Ski Village up to Shasta Ohm. The ability for people to have an evacuation route there it would really be bad.
Yeah, it would. We were just there the other day, Heidi, and it's bad. That whole subdivision out there is just mad Zanita ridden and covered, and so
Yeah.
not spaced. It's, there's not very many breaks in there.
Heidi,
Yeah,
you
and then I went into the Forest Service today and talked with well, the one of the planners, Jen Womack, is working on the Mackenzie Butte project, and then it's the future McBride project. And I've been asked by Nisha Van Hees, for folks that know the timber stand improvement person, if if the Gateway Firewise community could write a letter of support for thinning that area when the time came. So I also talked to the ranger. I mean, it was just a good time for me to walk in the door. And he was very excited about it. He said the time is not now, but just to put it on the radar. And I would imagine that they would come to you guys anyway.
Yeah, Joe Rodarm and I have talked some months ago about the McKinsey, and I thought he'd be speaking tonight, but he must have had a conflict. He was on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep,
He came last
definitely
time.
support it.
He came last month to the Wednesday night meeting that we had last month.
Right.
Yeah, and he talked about that then.
Yeah.
So I'm just carrying that message forward for the Gateway Firewise community. I think I would like to write a letter of support in addition to the Siskiyou
Absolutely.
County, Fire Safe Council.
Because if
Yeah,
you've
because
noticed
it's-
in the last couple of years, we've got about 40% mortality up there now. It went in 1 year from about 20% and doubled to 40%. And those bark beetles are moving every summer big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Ips beetle was also mentioned.
Yep.
There's about
Yeah.
4 different very aggressive beetles up in there.
Yeah.
Pine beetles and then Ips, which only affects fur. And duck.
So Jason, if you can if you can tell me now, that'd be great. But by Saturday, I'd like to be able to tell these folks I'm going to be in the Vista area going door to door with one of our new volunteers and letting people know about the Gateway project. And so that if we had brochures to hand out, CAL FIRE brochures for defensible space, that would be really cool. And I can come pick them up if you have them. And then also be able to have, I know that, there's a method to the madness of dragging brush out to the street and making sure people can actually pick it up so the ends are facing the street and put it in the chipper.
Yeah.
So anything else along those lines that
Yeah.
that you have that are written up that I can share with folks? And
One of
then
the best
we'll talk about, I'm almost done. We'll talk about scheduling, you guys and your availability and the neighbors' availability. Okay, I'm done. Thanks.
Well, thank you,
Sounds good,
Heidi.
Heidi. Yeah, I'll send you later tonight a great State Farm insurance brochure called Take Responsibility. Of all the stuff I've ever seen, this has got to be the top 5 we're sharing to the public. Take responsibility for your own land. Meanwhile, I wanted to ask you, Heidi, have you made contact with Bill Meese out in your neighborhood?
No, I know Bill.
Good. He's
yeah.
a real go-getter.
He
And
is.
one of our very hardworking neighborhood coordinators when we did that field reduction, that 150-acre project in 2017 out there. And he bridged a lot of gaps.
Oh,
So
that's
I definitely
great.
engage him if he's available.
Yeah, I'm working with Laura Berryhill, and I bet Bill is one of her neighbors. If I think I can get his number, but if you have it, if you wouldn't mind sharing that, that'd be great.
Well, he might, so maybe you better go through her. I've
Okay.
got his cell phone and he wanted me to preserve that.
Yeah,
Last time we
that's
talked.
understandable. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Heidi. It sounds wonderful. Everything you're doing and your energy and your door-to-door adventure. So we'll give you what you can, but Jason, we appreciate CAL FIRE and all the brochures they've provided over the years. So that's exciting too. So yeah, make
I
that
did
connection.
stick the CAL FIRE low, when we were talking about home hardening, I put the CAL FIRE low, no cost DIY retrofit list in the chat there if
Oh,
anyone doesn't
Good.
already
Yeah,
have that.
that's another one. Good.
And this is kind of just a anecdote, but I don't have the map in front of me, but this is, not on the ground yet, but the McConnell Foundation is going to be doing a large fuel reduction project, just to the east of the Gateway Firewise area. And they have
Fire Safe
expanded it.
Council, Mount Shasta area.
So anyway, yeah, there's maybe we can get Alex to come on one of these meetings, one of these
Yeah,
quarters,
Yeah,
and
that's a good idea.
go through that with us. But that's it's kind of locked up right now because of the federal funding freeze, because it's a federal grant.
Well, I goofed. I should have included him in the email invitation.
I know, I just wrote that down to email Ruby and have her add him to this email list.
Yeah.
So
Was there
anyways,
an-
that's gonna be a big deal for and that's gonna butt up against all of the work that on the Forest Service
Yeah.
land.
And Heidi, you may want to make contact with him because he's your neighbor. And with that great big project, it's gonna be Heidi
But
built.
so is Kristen, and Kristen's got a direct contact.
Yeah.
These are,
Jen.
yeah, I really lucked out, I tell you.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Jen mentioned the McConnell Foundation. I mean, and then Kristen, I knew that that project was happening and that the federal funds were like in limbo.
Yeah.
But Jen took me to their website, and it looks like if you look at the Gateway community map, there's a huge chunk of county land that I think butts up to what the McConnell Foundation work might be doing. And so I need to kind of sort out if there is any overlap. And Jen had mentioned something about the railroad area, which overlaps with the Gateway. So that would be a huge relief, for us if that work was already proposed or the CEQA was going through or, whatever is being done. So I'll reach out to Alex on the McConnell Foundation website and just kind of give it a more formal, and then whatever works out, if you can share that with him. But I understand that that's official time for him, maybe, and to keep it on official time.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to catch him otherwise, but yeah, it definitely, I don't think there's necessarily any bearing on what you're doing. It's just, it's great that it is gonna be a
It's just-
Was, excuse
big
me, was there an answer to how big a limb the chipper could take?
Oh, thank you, Marlene. I'm sorry, was getting to you. No, he said he's gonna research it. Jason, right? You're gonna research that.
Yeah, it just depends on the size of the chipper we have, and we have different ones out there, so 8 to 10 inches, like preferably.
How big?
But if you have, say that again,
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
8 to 10 inches in diameter.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's
Oh.
huge. Okay.
That's firewood.
Are you talking about for the chipper, Marlene, or for pruning and trimming your trees?
Well, the chipper for one, I mean, because that takes care of most manzanita and stuff and branches.
Mhm.
And also I was thinking in terms of, well, let's face it, I'm going to be 77 this year. My husband's 84. I don't think we're up to the task of cutting some of this down. Are there people that you can recommend as far as cutting some of the tree limbs and getting rid of it? And, you know, if we're thinning out trees?
Oh, we
Yeah,
do,
we can provide you a list. We've got a very active list of contractors,
Yeah.
hand crew contractors, domestication contractors.
Well,
We tell people,
I've had it masticated, you know, by the Wright brothers, you know,
yeah.
I guess that's a, anyway, they did a fantastic job, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about like with really small trees or trees that they couldn't just ram down because it's next to a bigger tree.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, we've got
we're
some hand
just
crews on.
talking about Jen Womack, and her husband has rope runners. He's a tree service. So
Oh,
that's she works for the Forest Service, and
trees,
Brenda with
brushers.
no, he's a tree service.
I know, she needs a brusher.
No, she says she wants tree service on her small trees, pruning and stuff.
small trees to cut down and drag out to, we're not capable of dragging out.
Brushing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a list of a variety of people, from tree service operators to masticators to hand crews to individual people with just a chainsaw and a pickup truck that may only be able to work under your homeowner's insurance because they don't have insurance. But you know, you can make that decision. And we tell people on the top of the list are the ones that have been on our list the longest.
Yeah.
We get one legitimate complaint, we take you off our list.
Actually,
Right.
it's in alphabetical order, but you can look at it.
Oh, you
and
put
see-
it in alphabetical
right.
order now?
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I don't want anybody with a chainsaw that doesn't have some kind of insurance, because
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually you're not supposed to do that
Right.
according to your, you
Right.
know. So
Heidi, to get
okay.
back with your comment about the railroad. As you may know, the railroad is owned by the Forbes family, or Four Rails. They, Jeff Forbes, the owner, died about close to 10 years ago. And that Four Rails company is, for the most part, defunct. They sold the rails to a company, a salvage steel company, was going to sell them for razor blades to China or something, and they went bankrupt. So, as far as I know, and Jen may have a better handle on this, but Four Rails is the owner presently, and whether you work on their railroad or not is really dependent on who you are and what you can provide. And I'm sure, talking about insurance, they're going to require anybody that works on their right of way to release them of liability and have the proper insurance indemnification in order.
so did that answer your questions, Marlene?
I'm on that trail on the railroad note there. I know the McConnell Foundation has been trying to acquire that for a long time for both trail to build trails and as a fuel break, a dual purpose project. And I don't know the status of it. I don't know what
You know, maybe ask Alex if he knows who owns that and how we could get in contact with them. And
Yeah, he
he'll-
definitely does. I mean, they've been trying to acquire it and do that.
Well, they-
for
they
a while.
wanna-
They've
yeah,
been
they
working
wanna-
with the Trail Alliance, trying to do that for a while. I just don't remember what the details were, why it wasn't
Yeah,
progressed.
I'd go direct to the Forbes family. What's her name?
I don't, Joe something, Joelle or something.
Yep, that's right. Joelle Forbes. And you can find her online. She's got a Facebook last time I talked with her. If you got a problem, let me know and I can get you a number. It'll probably be an old number. I haven't talked with her in a few years. But I know the Rails to Trails, or the Trails to Rails, was very eager to make a deal with Four Rails for
Mhm.
their trail proposal from Mount Shasta to Bernie. And
Right. And Sora was involved with it too, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, but the bigger picture, I guess, with all what we're saying with this, you know, the McConnell Foundation project and what the Forest Service is doing, with this energy that Heidi is bringing, I know, and ambition, looking to the future, you know, all these things help build the case and build the, you know, grant application essentially for
Yeah.
doing the community level fuel reduction that needs to be done in there, is that, you know, since it's going to be compounding effects, you know, from all these different entities. So, you know, at some point, you know, there'll be some sort of subcommittee grant, you know, try to get grants for that purpose. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is to kind of line up, make network connections now and be ready to apply for a grant and to be competitive in that. How about Crystal Geyser property? I have several neighbors that are but right up against it, and they're all very concerned. There's, of course, you know, lots of folks that camp out there in the summertime. And apparently one neighbor was telling me that there was a fire up there a couple of years ago. So, you know, it's just maybe a fuel break rather than trying to treat the whole area. So any
Yeah.
insights on
I
that?
haven't had contact with Crystal Geyser in a decade. They were one of our partners in our project, our North Sacramento Headwaters project that took in that area there. And they kind of have a bad taste in their mouth right now about Mount Shasta and all the obstructionism that went against them. But we were fortunate to be able to cooperate with them, and they finally cooperated with us, and we got a lot of work done on their land. How they feel today or what's going on today, hey, it's still for sale. They wish somebody probably buy it from them.
Yeah, I've started to put a lot of bug in people's ears, and maybe something will come out of it. I want to see that get grant, you know, funding to turn it into a rec center, a community center of
Oh
some
boy,
sort.
Yeah,
you know.
wouldn't that be
yeah.
great?
Jason Barr has been after that for a long time. There's been several of us that have said that I'd make a great ice skating rink,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I'd like to see that happen too. But
Oh, I didn't know Jason Bart. I grew up ski racing with Jason Bart. I'll have to track
yeah,
him
Oh,
down.
yeah?
Yeah, didn't know he was trying to do that. Yeah, Alex said that he had talked to someone with I don't know if it was the city or Sora, but they had already been kind of looking into that. But the hang up with that building in terms of, you know, something large scale like a ice skating rink is that there's these huge columns that are structural in there that, you know, would be like right in
in
the
the
way
way.
or
Yeah.
something. So, but that doesn't mean it can't be, you know, indoor basketball court or, you know, a lot of other
Just not
things.
hockey.
Right,
But,
right. And the other land that's right next to Heidi's subdivision that she's including, that was Crystal Geyser's land too. So I don't know, it's not the building, it's just a big pasture.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
over 150 acres there. They also have an excellent water source there that I had everybody talked into it except for CAL FIRE, convert that to a standpipe system if we ever got fire back in there. And their land actually goes right behind all of those homes on the north side of Ski Bowl as you're going from the sheriff's substation down to the curve of the road. So they're a very important property holder to get cooperation with.
Yeah.
Let's work
Ski
on that.
village. Ski village.
And
Yeah.
probably the best, you know, they got a sign right in front of their plant. Get that realtor's phone number and have that realtor put you in contact with the guy that can say go from Crystal Geyser.
Yeah. I think, you know, looking at it as you're the homeowner, here's an opportunity to get some uh forward momentum on fuel reduction. You know, that's it. It's just becoming an active member so that if we were going to get a grant to masticate along a, you know, fuel break or something like that, I think they would bite at the chance.
Well, on the subject of grants, and I guess it's not even on our thing, but I think we can move into open forum and let's talk
Well,
about grants.
there's one more.
I just wanted to backtrack one little kind of more logistical thing with the Firewise communities. I just wanted to remind everyone that part of, you know, kind of the first step with getting the Firewise communities going is creating a committee, board might sound intimidating and scare people off, so you don't have to use the word board.
We're not.
But you do really need to kind of get that set and get some buy-ins so that it's sustainable and it's not just a one woman, one man show. That I would encourage you to kind of get that more solidified before really jumping into all the other components, which, it's fine to do it a little bit out of order, like, doing the boundary and getting things going. But you do really want to get that committee set before getting too far in the process. So yeah, then getting, because doing the wildfire risk assessment is kind of a big part of the process that is good to have a team to do that, and especially for the 3-year action plan.
Yeah.
There's some steps in the process, so having a team is pretty crucial. So
Yeah, yeah. Good point.
Yeah,
Let's
well,
move on to number-
I hope you guys are both on my team.
yeah, and so I guess so
Let's stay
yeah,
with the
you've
Fire
got,
Safe Council will be here.
yeah, and so I would say, and so just to give you guys some kind of background, like with Chris Hake, her Skyview Firewise community, and with like the Hammond Ranch, that's still in progress and hasn't gotten designated yet. Sorry, my cat is trying to sit on me. And we have gone out, me and Josh, one of the core folks, have gone to, and Giselle has gone to, the board, the HOA board meetings, or even just, small group gatherings when they were just first starting to get going, to support and get hand out the pamphlets and get folks going all in the right direction. It sometimes helps to have someone with an official looking hat in the room to talk to folks, to rather than just neighbor Joe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say for both you, Steve and Heidi, maybe getting a meeting set up, even if it's just a handful of folks to start with, even if you don't have the 8 minimum people on board yet, try to get some very casual gathering of some sort scheduled sooner than later, and let us know if you need support with that.
Well, I'll probably ask you guys when you're available and start with that.
Yeah.
And then have you guys used different
Google.
locations in the
Oh.
community in the past?
Oh, we used to meet at the city park in the upper lodge. We've met there
Okay.
for many, many years. Now that Mike Rodriguez is not in charge, I don't know if we still have that invite. So yeah, but we can figure
I'm
it
sure
out.
we can.
We can figure
Okay.
it out. So
Yeah, I
Oh.
guess I feel like the pressure's on, so I kind of want to get going here.
Right. Yeah. I'd say, and that also helps, put legitimacy when you're handing stuff out, trying to get folks on board. You can say, here's our committee, or you can call it a steering committee or whatever, it's just to show that it's a real thing. It's people are, already taking the helm, and there's leadership involved, and so.
right.
Well, if you guys could think about the last week of April, I'll talk to the rec department and see if we can get that space. And Julie Titus did offer to join in a presentation as well. So I just kind of feel like set the date, get the place, start getting people there, and then I can spread the word. And then, it might be too soon for you. So let me know.
Well, no,
Well, and
probably
I-
not. Just we
You know
just
what
I'll
might
have
even
to.
be better? Is the first week in May, which is also National Wildfire Awareness Week. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on all over the county from a bunch of agencies and fire safe councils. And that kind of hype could give more credence possibly to your meeting.
Yeah, I was like, thinking, great minds think alike. I was thinking that, and I was thinking, Steve, this could be open to, your group too, Steve. We can, because Julie's going to come and give
You
her
bet.
spiel. The more people that get that information, the better. And then after
Yeah.
the initial presentation, we can break out into Firewise groups. Your group can go to that corner, Heidi's
There you
group
go.
to the other corner, and then you can talk shop about, amongst the individual Firewise groups about getting organized and action plans and all of that. So
I like that. That's a great idea. I mean, the whole thing, that the first week of May. Um, so maybe that might, if you guys aren't already committed, um, May 2nd, May 1st, somewhere in there.
Calendar.
yeah, that would be better for me because I'm going to be moving the last week of April. So I'm
Oh,
kind of
so,
overly
so
extended.
is National Wildfire Awareness Week, does it start up on the full first week, the 5th, the week of the 5th?
Yes.
Steve Diaz is saying yes. Okay, so that week, that sounds good. And then Kristen will be happily moved into whatever her new
Moving to
place.
Mount Shasta, actually. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Okay, you guys, so I'm gonna aim for that.
What day are you thinking about?
Um, well, any day of the week except a Wednesday.
What do you think about the 10th, a Saturday, where we get more public participation possibly?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe do it during an evening, but that's up to you guys. You could send out an email, Heidi, suggesting some dates and see what kind of responses you get.
Okay, yeah.
As soon as you get that, if you like, I'll contact the Mount Shasta Recreation Department. We've got excellent rapport with them and we'll do our best to get that. And I think we will.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
We'll try for the upper lodge.
Thanks, Dale. That would be great.
Okay.
And then just let me know the date. And Steve, I hope you're around. If not, we can invite all your neighbors and then you could be there incognito from Zoom
So-
somewhere.
It's my intention to be gone from about April 22nd until probably sometime after Memorial Day.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all right. There'll be lots of opportunities to rally the troops. The other little tidbit is longer term, not immediate, but with the Fire Safe Council, in terms of writing grants, the Fire Safe Council is already often the fiscal sponsor for the community level fire safe councils, like Juniper Flat Fire Safe Council has done a CAL FIRE grant and whatnot. And so I guess it's a question we probably need to talk through with the board, is what's that going to look like now with Firewise communities starting up and Firewise communities wanting to write grants? Will the Fire Safe Council be fiscal sponsor using our 501c3,
Oh,
to be the fiscal sponsor conduit for Firewise communities that want to write grants? So, because from other counties, we've, always heard that a lot of Firewise communities get micro grants to buy their own chipper or to get the green, fire, reflective fire address sign
yeah.
for all their Firewise residents, and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
something we should talk about and figure out.
Maybe we can talk about all of that at our meeting, our Firewise meeting. Talk about how we're going to structure grant writing and if the Fire Safe Council will be available with their 501(c)(3) because we've done that in the past. So there'd have to be like an MOU if we did that too, so that we know whose responsibility was what. But that's the way we've done it for years, and we've written over 40 grants and gotten them. So, and partly it's because who we are, we're the Fire Safe Council and 501(c), and they trust us. But I'm not sure if if Firewise communities can do that, that they might be able to do your own. Let's just explore that and see if that's the way it works or not. So,
Yeah. So however, however we can make it work, if if we identify a need that homes are not identified in our area by the road with any kind of reflective signage, I'm thinking specifically Vista, it's just you don't know what driveway
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is.
the Ford
And
family. Go ahead.
if the Fire Safe Council wants to write a grant or is willing to submit the grant for, let's say, the Gateway Firewise Council, I can do whatever support to help make that grant go like you wouldn't have to start from scratch. I can draft it and then submit it and then give it to you and you can submit it. How,
And that would help, so we'd know what you want. Ford Family Foundation does the smaller grants that would get you your reflective signs, maybe food for some outreach, and they wouldn't buy a chipper. However, CAL FIRE grants are coming open in the fall, and those might support a chipper or something like that. Also, Forest Service grants, right now, Stevens grants are not really active, but they could be. So, and federal
Well,
funding,
the
you know
rack,
how
when
that is.
the rack gets up and running again, that would, seems like that
Yeah,
would be something right
I
up their
just saw
alley.
an article saying that they're pulling all of the rural schools, 1 and 2, that's rack, they're pulling it. So I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah, I
mean,
saw that too.
who's Nick?
Yeah, I saw that. I just admitted them. Hopefully it's
Okay.
supposed to be here.
All righty. Well, let's go on to, because it's getting a little late, fuel reduction projects that are in place. The old stage project is going, like I said, from Cantera to Ream and on up Azalea. We've got most of it done and we've got just a little bit more to do. And we'll be closing that out probably in August. So Steve, if you want to claim that piece of ground, you have projects going on in there. And then that was supposed to be District Ranger, not Dr. Joe Rodarm. Mackenzie Butte, we already talked about that. Anybody have any more they want to add about the Mackenzie Butte project? Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah, no,
ahead.
I would say I don't have much to add. I talked to Hani about it and it's
Hey,
really just an
Quandale Dingle here.
so beyond that, it's just kind of getting NEPA in place and so all those wheels rolling.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that, Christine, for that update. And we'd already talked a bit. Open forum. Anything else? We've had a lot of discussion here. So,
Oh my God, who the hell?
Oh, okay, let me get
okay,
them
yeah,
out
the
here.
hacker. Yeah, delete him out of there.
Remove. Yeah.
FYI, over the years, we've had some pretty interesting hackers. So I was kind of suspicious when he asked to be let in.
I don't drive a Tesla, so buzz off.
So anyway, he's gone anyway. So, all right. Next meeting, next quarter meeting, August 8th. Oh, Dale says he has something more to add. Go ahead.
I only wanted to add, don't feel pressured because we're all in this together. I want to emphasize, we've done this for more than a few years. Our Fire Safe Council in Mount Shasta started before the Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County even existed. We helped charter it, in fact. And after 23 years, we're still learning all the time. So I really appreciate that we've got, I think, 4 different formed or forming Firewise communities. Ideally, it would be excellent to very soon have a Firewise community for all of the Mount Shasta area. We got 5,000 people here and fire can start anywhere, don't we know? So I think we can have a great experience talking it up, coming up that first week in May down at the city park and get our heads together, no pressure, set some goals set some objectives, and move forward.
Well, I believe we can have all of the smaller firewises within that. We're talking about, we already talked to Corey about the fire district area. And that wouldn't kick your firewise out. That would just be picking up all that space, not, oh, Happy Camp Firewise, are we supposed to be on that, Kristen? I just popped up. Anyway,
Hello, Happy Camp.
Yep, Happy Camp's having their first
Yeah.
Firewise meeting,
Yeah,
in
so-
5 minutes, yep. Steve's
So-
got his hand up.
oh, Steve?
So I just want to kind of bring this up. Heidi and I had this conversation as a sidebar a while back. Do we have a public affairs presence within this organization?
Yes,
And, okay, I was gonna say, if not, I know that CAL FIRE has a public affairs person, as does the Forest Service. But I think that since safety really is kind of a hard sell, it might be good to bring some of our successes out into the open. For
Okay.
instance, we've had things everywhere from Shingletown. There have been other things down in the Central Sierra where there have been defensible spaces and people have been very mindful of what they're doing. Fire rolls through there, fire goes to the ground, firefighters are heroes, and nobody loses a home.
Scott.
And I'm sure that we have some successes locally that we could share, as well as some of the consequential fires that maybe weren't as successful. I think I would like to see if there's a way we could kind of daylight those successes.
That'd be great. You want to do that at the meeting in May or the next meeting? When would you like to do that? Or do you want to put it on a website? How you want to get that word out there?
Ultimately, it'd be wonderful to have it on a website. It would also be wonderful to do it when we have these public meetings where, when Heidi's got an organizational meeting, when I put together our organizational meeting, where you have people in the room and you can kind of judge the room and be enthusiastic like Kevin and kind of get people motivated.
Yeah,
Look, this works.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
not just selling you a bill of goods. We don't want
Right.
money.
yeah. Those success stories are so valuable. And so, yeah. We need to dialogue that more. How are we going to do that? We can collect the stories, but then how are we going to get them out there? So, maybe we can, Dale? add a thought?
Yeah, well, we've been successful in a number of venues, and I'm really grateful to the old Mount Shasta Herald and the Southern Cisco newspapers and the Eureka Daily News. They gave us a lot of press. In fact, they would allow us to write press releases, and they would rarely ever edit them, run them, 500-600 words, great pictures before and afters and all that stuff. The local radio station has been great, and we really needed them and need them now in the event of an emergency. They're there for us. So we've got some very good success stories, and not just from the Mount Shasta area, but all over the county. And probably the greatest success story that first comes to mind is that all wooden community, 100-year-old community of Tennant, that old historic town saved. And the Forest Service came to us later and said, because we could anchor in to your field breaks, we were able to save this town and we never had one single firefighter injury. So that spoke big to us. We were really gratified. But it was a whole team effort of CAL FIRE and Forest Service and Fruit Growers Supply and the local fire department there at Tennant when they existed. And just like whatever we do right here in Mount Shasta, we're all in this together. And whether we're going after this project or that project, inevitably it's going to take money. And the way we get money is we have to toot our horn, because if we don't toot our horn, leave it to somebody to use it for a spittoon. And that's why we have got millions of dollars of grants over the last 23 years. but it's not like we haven't tried to get more, because really, we're about 10%ers. For all the grants we've written over the last 23 years, we managed to get about 10%. It's highly competitive. And now with the Trump administration, it's going to be much, much more competitive. So that's where we need to really collaborate and realize what we want to accomplish as goals and objectives, and do our best to work together to get her done. Whether it's a Fire Safe Council grant or if it's a Big Springs grant, it doesn't matter. We got to get the work done.
Yeah. Well, Steve, let's talk offline maybe and make that happen. Kristen and I have to jump into another meeting. I think what you said is really valuable, and I want to make it a reality. So
Also, the newsletter would be a good venue for
that, yeah,
as well.
yep.
What about
Oh,
that
website.
Mount Shasta News that's on Facebook? There's a Mount Shasta News.
Yeah, and our Facebook too. So we could share whatever we put on our Facebook can be shared with them. So let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, and the Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County website has just a summary of the many accomplishments we've been thankful to achieve.
But I mean, how many people go to that though and actually
A
look
lot.
at it? Do they?
Usually when smoke's in the air.
Yeah, no, we can put it on one more than one. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's what I'm saying, because,
Yeah.
you know, hit people from different areas maybe. you know.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
All
Thanks for
righty.
being
Well,
here,
thank
Steve.
you.
We'll be in touch.
Okay.
All
Sure
right.
appreciate y'all. We'll
Right.
keep her moving.
Hey.
Greg, you can stop the recording if you would like.